pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll with Atlantis.
Water towers fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight now, speed off. Bring in, speed off. Off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, it's time for another exciting episode of Let's Launch a Rocket with today's contestant, Falcon 9. We've got GPS 3, the fifth mission of GPS here, out at Cape Canaveral. That's SLC 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station down in Florida. The NASA Spaceflight team, one more time, has brought you live views. This is our camera from the causeway, and we will be doing our live Q&A like we do. My name is John Galloway with NASASpaceflight here, live from Livestream Control, and out in the field today, we've got Chris Gebhardt. Let's do a comms check with Chris and see if we've got him on. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing just well. How about yourself, Doss? It's a glorious morning here in Florida.
Just trying to come up with new intros when we start the stream, Chris.
I loved that one, by the way. I was glad I had the kill switch on because I laughed really loud.
I mean, quite frankly, like usually the contestant these days is Falcon 9, so it's a pretty safe bet to say, like, what's behind door number 3? Oh, it's another Starlink, but it's not a Starlink today. It's GPS 3, isn't it?
That's true. It's another I can't believe it's not Starlink today. Yes.
Excellent. Y'all, Chris G out there in the field is not only operating the camera, but is also assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight. All the cool articles and stuff like that. If you're more of a reading person, we have articles for all sorts of things, including this launch. And Chris, amongst all the things he does, that is another thing that he helps me, that he manages straight up with NASA Spaceflight. So, Chris, thank you so much for rolling out today and bringing us the live views.
Oh, my pleasure, as always.
All right, let me get a couple other people on the stream here real quick, and then we'll talk about the mission. We'll do the live Q&A, read some super chats, all the stuff that we normally do. I believe also back in the studio, we've got Michael Baylor.
Wrong order. Sorry. Yes, I am in the studio, and I am the one who just clicked the wrong button.
No, that's okay. I always try to mix it up to keep y'all on your toes. So Michael Baylor is making sure all the lights blink in the proper order back in the studio today, changing cameras and stuff like that. We'll have this, and we'll have Fleet Cam as well, because Fleet Cam can actually see Space Launch Complex 40 over there from the deck of Rusty's at Cape Canaveral, or Port Canaveral, I guess. So if you want to see a launch in person, that right there is from Rusty's Seafood and Oyster Bar over at the port. You can watch launches like this right from there. Also, I believe we've got Julia. She's out in the field, and I don't see her on comms right now, but she may be joining us here in just a bit. She's a photographer and our resident fleet watching expert over at the port. But we'll see if we get Julia back on comms here. I know she is out on she's out on the causeway with Chris, or where's she today?
Yeah, Julia's out here on the causeway.
She's out on the causeway. All right, good deal. Out on the causeway. So we'll see if we can get Julia back on comms here. But let's go ahead and get this party started. Like we do, this is a live stream. All the views that you're going to see are live. And these views are actually our own cameras, the Fleet Cam that watches the operations there at the port. And then Chris Gebhardt, this camera right here, rolling out to the causeway, because this is 40, right, Chris?
This is indeed. We are on the causeway because this is 40. Yep.
Okay. So if you have a question for us, tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight. It'll go into some cool software that Michael has made, and we can go through your questions. Same thing with super chats. If you do a super chat, you don't have to do a super chat to ask a question. We try to mix it up, but we do read through those and say thanks, because we're able to bring you this sort of coverage and commentary because, quite honestly, y'all keep showing up. So thank you for showing up. And Chris, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the mission. I can't believe it's not Starlink. What is it?
I know. So this is a new, well and trusted GPS satellite, a global positioning system satellite for both military and civilian use. So as you sort of alluded to earlier today, Das, right, it's a global positioning system satellite. So if you've ever used your phone to navigate you somewhere, this is the constellation and this is the system that you have most likely been using. It is analogous to or it is complementary to the Beidou system that China has, which is another global positioning system, as well as ones from Russia and ones from Europe as well. So, a complementary system mainly for the US and the US military, but also for civilian use. It's the fifth in the new generation of GPS satellites. So, this is the third generation, hence GPS 3. And then we mark them SV Space Vehicle '05. So this is the fifth of the third generation that's going up. And it is the fourth of the GPS 3 satellites that is actually launching on a Falcon 9. Only one to date has launched on a different rocket. The second one successfully was placed into orbit on the final flight of a United Launch Alliance Delta IV medium rocket back in 2019. And all the rest have gone on SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets. This is the fifth of 10. So, with this, they'll be halfway through the deployment of the new generation. And basically, what we're doing is we're very systematically replacing the GPS 2 series, which were launched between 1989 and 2006. So, we are gradually replacing them and upgrading them. Some of the big improvements on the civilian side, so things that you will start to notice and may have already started to notice on some of your navigation systems, is accuracy improvement. So the old GPS 2 satellites, some of which are still functioning, had civilian accuracy down to about 30 feet or 10 meters, and these new ones have civilian accuracy down to 3 feet or 1 meter, and even more accuracy for military purposes, like down to like you know, the sub-meter range. So these are very powerful GPS satellites, good improvements and augmentation to the current system that we currently have. And Das, you know what? I'd be remiss if I didn't say one other really cool thing that this mission represents for the US government.
Okay.
And yeah, and this is the first time that the Space Force, the US military, is allowing a reflight of a Falcon 9 rocket. And what's great about it is we know it will not be the last time. So this booster is 1062. It previously launched in November of last year with the fourth GPS 3 satellite. The Space Force then said, we want to keep that one because we want to really look at it. We want to really understand it from our perspective of how good they still are after their first flight. But because SpaceX also won the National Security Space Launch Contract Awards and other things as well, the Air Force and Space Force and military now actually have access to all Falcon 9 booster flight data, no matter how many times they've flown. And we know that the Space Force is now okay with not just a booster that has flown one military payload before, but doesn't matter if it's the seventh or eighth flight of the booster, they can fly national security missions. So, a good forward advancement. And actually, the US military was the last holdout on booster reuse for the Falcon 9.
No
So,
kidding.
yeah. Yeah, even NASA got comfortable with it for crew before the Space Force and the military got comfortable with it for satellites.
Yeah. It seems like it was inevitable. I mean, with so many reused rockets now, it seems like everybody should realize that, the second flight, the third flight, it's not like, oh no, every third flight fails. They
Right.
have been reusing these things like crazy. Wasn't there a story? All right, look, I don't know if this was made up, but this is why you're the news guy, right? Was there something where like a client was more comfortable with a reused rocket, a flight proven rocket, than a new rocket? Or did somebody on Twitter just make that up? Have you heard anything like that?
I have, not that I can say who precisely,
Ah,
but I have heard that, yes, that commercial companies in particular, commercial satellite launch companies, are more apt to go for flight proven rockets, not just because it allows them to sort of go whenever they want to in the manifest, because there's a catalog that you can just pull from, right? And it doesn't matter what booster, but
yeah.
because the flight history, right? SpaceX keeps getting them back. So they keep getting able to look at them and know, okay, like when we fly them 4 times, they're still good. When we fly them 5 times, this is what we need to do to prepare them for their sixth.
Right.
Right. So there are some commercial companies that are more comfortable with flight proven than new, but not that they would turn down a new booster if it was like, hey, something happened and you've got to go on a new one.
Gotcha. Makes good sense there. I am going to start going through some of the questions, and seeing what people are asking us here. And I'm going to start off with this one. This is from Dank Jeb, and it's via a super chat. Chris, let's get this
Yeah.
question out of the way. Do I have to
Oh,
ask the
I know what
question?
it is. Can I just answer it without you
Yeah,
asking?
just answer the question.
They're lightning protection towers, which are really important this time of year. Yes. Did I get it right? Yeah.
You got it exactly right. Every single live stream, especially from 40, we get a question, what are the towers around the rocket? You want lightning? Lightning's going to strike something. You'd rather it strike the big towers than the rocket. So those are lightning protection towers. They're supposed to draw the lightning and channel it down to the ground instead of having the rocket get hit by lightning and the the electricity going down through the body of the rocket, I guess. So those are the lightning
Indeed.
protection towers. Dank Jeb, actually. Jank Jeb. Thank you so much for the support.
And I can say they are really needed right now because for as much as you've been hearing me say on previous streams this month, it hasn't started raining yet. It hasn't. Oh boy, did it start raining in the last week and thundering and lightning. I know Stephen Marr was not actually our photographer, one of our photographers here, who's shooting from off-site today, but he was going to set remotes at the pad yesterday, and the thunderstorms were so bad and so severe they could, for safety reasons, could not set remotes at the launch pad yesterday.
It was like a ground stop or something, a lightning warning, where you can't have people out on the pad, right?
Exactly that. Yeah. So those lightning protection towers are really important this time of year.
Yeah. One of these days, when we see a big thunderstorm coming through, we're going to need to leave fleet cam on 40 and see if we can catch a lightning bolt actually striking one of those towers. I don't know that I've ever seen that. I'm sure NASA has video of lightning striking one of their towers, but I bet you fleet cam could see it.
Oh, there are some epic pictures of lightning striking towers with rockets
Yeah.
on the launch pad. Yes.
Yeah, with I think like shuttle and stuff. I think I've seen one with shuttle on the pad.
Yep. There are several
Yeah.
from that era. Yeah.
All
How's the
right.
weather right now, Chris?
Weather right now is looking pretty good. There are clouds to the south, north, and west of us and east of us, but we are in a wonderful little hole with actually some
yeah.
clear blue skies. So fingers crossed. 12:09 is the launch time, and it's a 15-minute window. So fingers crossed, but weather is looking good. Overall today, the 45th Weather Squadron of Space Launch Delta 45 of the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That's a mouthful. Say that 8 times full. Or say that 8 times full. I can't even say it one time fast.
Oh no, Chris, I'm in trouble. It says 45th Space Wing.
Oh dear.
Gosh, what's this supposed to say? 45th Delta V or something like that now? Isn't
Something like that. Something like that. But you can see the official launch forecast here actually looking fairly good. Only a 30% chance of our ground weather getting us today, and a moderate chance of upper level winds. So we will stand by to see what that is. But Michael, if I am not mistaken, at this point we are fueling of the rocket because we're about 29 minutes or so away from liftoff.
And I think, can we see any vapors on your camera yet? I'm looking.
I
contrast
see
with the background.
Vapors, no.
Yeah, a little tough
Yeah,
there.
with the naked eye, no, I cannot see any vapors yet.
Yeah, keep an eye out, Chad. If you're watching, keep an eye on the rocket, and if you see some venting occur around the rocket, we know that they're supposed to be into the fueling flow now.
They did confirm they are in the flow, so that's good.
Good deal. A couple more real quick. Space Hippo, appreciate the support. Lindsay Abrams as well. Thank you for stopping in. Artie Ran is a new member of the NASA Spaceflight family. We appreciate that monthly support there, Artie. Let's see. A question from Musical Wolves. How's it going, Musical? Will Falcon 9 use the payload GPS sat for navigation at liftoff? So do rockets use GPS satellites, Chris?
They can use the GPS satellite network, yes, for coordinates and knowing where they are. Our spacecraft do use them for navigation. However, in this regard, I don't know if Falcon 9 specifically uses the GPS network because some of its other guidance, navigation, and control systems, yes, it would certainly be useful, but I don't think it's necessary to be connected to the GPS network, if that makes sense, because the rocket can sort of know where it is to start with, and then it knows where it is as it's launching, basically.
Well,
as it's
Chris,
sensing. Yeah. Sorry.
It knows where it is because it knows where it isn't.
Exactly.
Something about deviation in there.
It is, and the reason I say it's not mandatory for rockets to be connected to the GPS network when they launch is because rockets launched the GPS satellite network. So by definition, they had to be able to use it. they had to be able to fly without them, and that's why I say, like, they can incorporate that data, but it's not necessarily necessary depending on the rocket to do it.
Yeah. Makes good sense. Back in the day, we just had the NASA engineers licking their thumb and holding it up in the air and then lighting the candle and sending it. They're like, yeah, I don't know. That looks good. It looks like it's about right.
If
Turn left a little
if
bit.
if you so there are some great videos on YouTube that I highly recommend. If you go back to the 60s and the 70s, the Air Force used to do these monthly recaps of everything that had happened and recaps of mission, and some of them are preserved on YouTube, and they are absolutely fascinating because they give insight into how the range operated back then, where there were tables with slide rules and maps, and they were manually plotting where the rocket was as it was going out downrange. Fascinating to see how they did it before computers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to grab a couple more of the questions here. And we are now T minus 26 minutes. So continue to watch for those vapors, y'all. It is fueling. And let us know if you see some vapors coming off the rocket. Here is Rough Riders Show saying, which customer do you think will be okay with reused fairings? Are these fairings reused today, Chris?
I Yeah, so we definitely know that customers have been comfortable with payload fairings before, because we've seen them used
Yeah.
on non-Starlink missions before, reused on non-Starlink missions before. So customers are comfortable with that. That's not a problem. In fact, I believe a couple flights ago, a payload fairing flew for the fifth time. When half of a payload fairing flew for the first time. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the ones today are new. I do not believe they are
Yeah,
reused.
they are new.
Yeah, they're new,
But
yes.
but the Space Force did say, as part of the NSSL National Security Space Launch 2 contract, which SpaceX was just awarded 40% of, SpaceX is allowed to fly reused boosters and reused payload fairings without any constraints on the number of flights.
Awesome. Well, there you go with that information for that. Thank you, Gene. um, yeah, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah, so there you go for the payload fairings and what they're allowed to do. So yeah, customers definitely getting comfortable with them.
Excellent. Let's see. I'm going to speed run a couple here really quickly. Actually, there's not much that I can speed run. There's a lot of questions. Max, thank you for the membership. We appreciate the support. Um, Thomas Enfang says the towers are in fact shrines to Zeus to appease him for entering his domain.
I like that.
And also, the record for the most people in space will soon be broken. We had a China with a crewed launch last night, didn't we?
Yes, we did. This was major. This was a major moment for them. First time in 5 years that they launched a crew mission. The Shenzhou 12 mission with 3 astronauts, two veterans and one rookie. One person was on his third flight, one was on his second, and one was on his first. And yeah, Shenzhou 12 launched successfully and docked successfully to the Chinese space station in the overnight hours. And I believe I saw that the hatches were opened around 10:30 UTC this morning, so they should be in the module now. So a major moment for China, and huge congratulations. That was. I hand it to them for the coverage. We talk a lot about their secrecy a lot, and they did a wonderful job yesterday letting the world see that.
Excellent. And so soon, when we have the next crewed flight going up, we'll have broken the record for the number of simultaneous people in space. Is that true?
As long as it is a Falcon 9 with a Dragon with 4 people, yes, we will.
Aha. Now wait a second. What Falcon 9 would be launching a Dragon with 4 people in it coming up?
Well, that's a good question. It'll either be Inspiration 4 or Crew 3.
Gotcha.
Crew 3 already slipped to October 31st. Inspiration 4 is currently sitting September 15th, but I would take that date with a huge grain of salt. Not the least of which because it's supposedly using the same booster that Crew 3 is using. So there's some juggling that they have to do. They can obviously change the boosters, but
Right.
yeah, Inspiration 4. I personally wouldn't expect that to hold to the 15th, even though I know they're doing as much as possible to keep it that way. So that's why I say it needs to be a Falcon 9. It needs to be 4 people. That's sort of
Gotcha.
where we're at right now to
So
meet it. So if it's a Soyuz with 3, we tie. We don't break.
Right. So it's we have some requirements there on the Falcon 9, but we've all got to remember our rocket is neither early nor is it late. It'll launch exactly when it's
Right.
supposed to. So we'll see if it goes out in time to break that record. Adrian Bettard, thank you so much. It says, I don't have a question, just weird spending habits. Well, we appreciate your weird spending habits, Adrian. Thank you for the support.
I wouldn't say they're weird. Thank you. Unless you mean the people are weird, which, yes, I admit I'm weird sometimes. So, yes.
Here's one from Brian Barr. Nice. Instead of the lightning towers, what's the white object in the middle of the lightning towers attached to the TE? We'll turn that question around today. That's the
Oh, I
fairing.
like that. That's the rocket.
That's the
Yeah, the
rocket.
payload fairing. Yes, I love it.
And it is interesting from this perspective. There's actually the transport structure. It's the transport and erecting structure that actually moves the rocket around and then helps get it up vertical. That's in the way. So we see the payload fairing sticking over the top of it, but the big gray structure we see, that's actually going to stay on the ground, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so that'll stay on the ground, and it's a little hard to see from the perspective where we are because we are due south of it. But that transporter erector at T0 when the rocket lifts off will throw itself back with its hydraulic systems back to 45 degrees. Little hard to see on the angle that we have here because it actually is moving toward us.
Come at us, yeah.
Um, yeah, but it throws itself away from the rocket at the moment of liftoff in order to protect all of the umbilicals and the things on it. Because if they can protect all of that from the fire and the heat of the Falcon 9, it reduces the amount of time it takes to turn that pad around and put a new rocket on it. Which
Yep.
right now, there's another launch coming up before the end of the month.
And
So
I
yeah,
actually
they're
think we've got some vapors here now. Looking at really closely, I think I can
yeah.
see some little clouds, little puffy clouds coming off to the side of the
I
rocket.
indeed. Well, we should have our T minus 20-minute vent here very, very soon.
That's what I'm looking for. So what I was trying to do is draw everybody's attention to the vapors on the rocket, and then hopefully the big T minus 20 event happened. But here we're waiting for it, and haven't seen it happen yet. Certainly, it's not just a contrast thing.
No,
Interesting, Michael. We
definitely not. Very interesting. Yeah.
double check the launch times, and are you listening to the comms net to see? Oh, there we go.
There it is.
That should get a lot bigger. You see the little teeny tiny. There we go. All right. Whew.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what we were looking for.
So probably what that means is that even though they have told us 12:09, it's most likely 12:09 and XXX seconds because that 20-minute event should occur basically at 20 minutes and 21 seconds.
Right.
Basically, that's when it always happens. So, and it's automated, so it's not like it can change with any degree. So it probably just means they're not targeting the 00 number at the top of the minute, but a few seconds past 12:09. Yeah.
Yep. And look at this. A lot of times when it's windy down there at the Cape, because it's windy a lot, you'll see that vapor sort of blowing off in the wind. But today it almost looks like it's cascading sort of straight down, maybe going away from the camera a little bit. Are the winds basically just calm out there today, Chris?
There's basically no wind out here today, and the humidity is so high. I'm not surprised it's pulling things out of the air and down to the ground. Let's put it
Yep.
that way.
It almost just looks
Yeah.
like a little miniature rain cloud happening right there, sort of stopping and then cascading down. But this is normal, y'all. This is something that
Yes.
happens every Falcon 9 launch. This is the T minus 20 vent. It's not leaking. They're intentionally clearing out some of the lines that they use to actually fill up Falcon 9. And every single time, right around T minus 20 minutes, if we see this, we know that things are ticking along towards an on-time launch. This is something that if we didn't see it, we would be concerned like, oh, wait a second, are they going to scrub or something? But there it
Hen-
is.
hen-
That's what we want to see.
Hence why there was concern in your voice, Doss.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
waiting for it. I was like, it's 19 minutes and 40 seconds. Where's the? Oh, okay, good. There's the vent. Whew.
Yeah.
Really quick, the launch time is 9 minutes and 35 seconds. So I did update our countdown.
So we were
There we
about
go.
35 seconds off. That makes sense because it's supposed to be 21, and it happened right around 40 a minute later. So that seems to be on the numbers.
Welcome to NSF clock calibration.
Hey, one of the many things that has to happen during the live streams is
Oh, yeah.
literally clock, like the countdown clock calibration. You're not kidding. So Let's grab a couple more questions here. There's so many, like a few people trying to get in on the what are the four towers questions. Bryce, I see you in there. I see your question as well. We've got the four towers, those lightning towers there. Let's see. Here's one. All right, this is an interesting question. Since the Falcon 9 can carry GPS, could it also carry GLONASS for Russia, Galileo for the EU, and IRNSS for India? There's probably two
If
parts
those
to that.
nations, yeah,
Yes.
so it could if the nations wanted it to.
Yes.
From a sheer payload mass to orbit standpoint.
Physics
now,
says yes.
yeah, physics says yes.
Politics, on the other hand.
Russia and China would never allow their military GPS systems to be launched by another nation, just like the US would not. I doubt India would as well. Europe has their own rockets to do that, but basically the only one of those that I could foresee any nation or supranational entity, because the EU and ESA are involved with the European
Right.
stuff. Europe's system is the only one that I could foresee because of the NATO connections being allowed to launch on US vehicles. But technically, yes, but security-wise, I wouldn't hold my breath for it.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's see here. Is this launch going to be an RTLS, or is this landing on the
Good
drone
question.
ship? What's the landing today? I guess we should say.
Yes, so weighing in at 4.3 metric tons, or 4,311 kilograms to be precise, the GPS satellite is too heavy for a return to launch site landing, so it will actually utilize Just Read the Instructions, which is our only drone ship right now here in Florida. And I'm actually going to pass the headset over to Julia, who just walked up, because this is a perfect port question for Julia. You arrived at the right time.
Why, hello everyone. I'm on Chris's headset.
Hey, Julia, how's it going?
Wonderful. The signal down here is so much better.
We were talking about the landing today, the drone ship that's out, and that new wacky-looking fairing ship is out too, isn't it?
Yes, the Haas is out there who was just learning how to retrieve fairings out of the water. Again, this is another temporary solution. We're still waiting for a long-term solution for fairing recovery.
Gotcha. So we've seen the Haas. What's the name of it? It's Haas Max on the side, but the name of the ship is different, isn't it? Haas something. Haas fairing picker-upper.
Yeah, we're just going to call it the Haas fairing
The
picker-upper
Haas
because
fairing
if I
picker-upper.
tried to open up marine traffic, it would just be a bad thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But we've seen that one coming into the port, and that is the replacement for Shelia Bordelon, or Board Elon, depending on how you pronounce it. And those are the replacements for Mystery and Mischief, the ones that used to catch them in the nets. But now SpaceX is down, or they've decided that the best way to do this is scooping the fairings out of the water, right? They have a special ship to do that.
Right, and that does require a crane. So when we get a more permanent solution, I would assume that they're going to have a crane on board, whatever vehicle that they modify.
Good deal. And it's the Briarwood, apparently. It's the Haas Briarwood. Chat is helping us out with that one.
Why, thank you, chat.
Yes, thank you very much. But again, we think that one's going to be a temporary solution until we see maybe a smaller ship. That thing is a huge, yeah, look at that. There you go. It's
Yeah,
like
that's a huge, huge spaceport. I think it's a little bit more than we need out there right now. Yeah.
it's a, what did Gav call it? Gav called it a flotel, a floating
Yeah,
hotel, because it's got
yeah.
yeah, so much room for crew on it, and somebody forgot that they may need a helipad, so they just added it to the front like a weird hat. But you look at that massive crane on the back. That's what's going to be scooping the fairing out or the fairing halves out of the water, right?
That is correct. And yeah, this one is a little bit more than I think we need. I think some deck space is probably being utilized that could have been used for fairing. So I'm looking forward to something a little more long term.
Yeah. Something that can go out there, scoop up both fairings, has a crane, but probably not this big of a crane. So, excellent. Let's keep on with some more questions here. Here's one for either one of you. Either Julia or Chris could answer this. How's the security at the Cape today?
Oh, hold on. I'm going to pass to Chris because he has a great answer for that. My security on my end is butterflies, but Chris has better.
Ah, okay. Again, y'all, that's
I know
Julia
the question that's
Bergeron.
being asked.
Yep, that was the voice of Julia Bergeron, our fleet chaser. She's out there with Chris today. Thanks for Julia. Thanks to Julia for hopping in. Chris, you know the question. How's
I know the
security?
question. Let me find it. It may have gone back below the water because it's hotter, and I do not see it now. Oh man,
Oh,
there's like an 8-foot alligator that was just cruising up and down all of us earlier today, right before we went on air. But it appears to have taken shelter under the water as the atmosphere heats up.
gotcha. So we say the causeway. Could we zoom out a little bit just to see the water in frame real
Oh,
quick?
certainly, certainly, certainly. Hang on, I was not
Yeah.
actually near the camera. Hang on.
Oh, sorry. Because
I was in the
between
wonderful air conditioning.
in the air conditioning, nice. Between the camera and the rocket, there is a huge. I'm just at a bay, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what terminology to use, but there are alligators in there, and there are signs up and down the causeway here saying, beware of alligators, etc., etc. But every now and then, you'll see one floating by. When we were starting the stream, Chris saw one in the water there, and then we were waiting to go live. Then we did the intro. Then apparently it's gone now, but. Also gives you a little appreciation for our camera. Like, zoom back in, Chris. There's plenty of zoom on this camera, isn't there?
Oh yes, we are 3 kilometers or sorry, 5 kilometers or 3 miles away from Slick 40 here and the Falcon 9. So here is the long NSF zoom on into the rocket.
Excellent. You can see those vehicles, the security vehicles, the work vehicles driving on the other causeway. Those will either clear out or batten down for the launch. But this is where we're looking from. When we say the causeway, that's what we mean. This is a safe distance for human beings, specifically the members of the press that go out there and are allowed to film and photograph and experience these launches and then share that via various types of media. This is the safe place for them to be. So again, if you're just joining us, we are standing by coming up on about 10 minutes before this Falcon 9 launch of GPS 3, Space Vehicle 05. This is Slick 40. Chris said Slick 40. It stands for Space Launch Complex 40. You just say Slick 40 so that your friends think you're space cool. But this is out of the Space Force Station down in Florida, coming up on about 10 minutes.
It is indeed, yeah, and it'll be a good mission. So it's going. So let's talk a little bit, Das, about the orbit that it's going into because it's a very different orbit than what we're used to, right? So the Starlinks go into low Earth orbit, so we talk a lot about that. Missions to the International Space Station or any space station right now go to low Earth orbit, and then we talk a lot about geostationary transfer orbit or geostationary orbit for our big telecommunications satellites, but these actually operate in a different kind of orbit. So the GPS series of satellites go into what is called a medium Earth orbit. So they go to about 22,000 kilometers is their orbit. So low Earth orbit is about 200 to 1,000, and then medium is up there, and then geostationary starts at 35,786 kilometers. So these are sort of in the middle ground, in the medium space, in a medium Earth orbit. And that's because it's actually when you have a global positioning system, you don't want the satellites to be stationary over the ground. You want the network to be moving across the surface of the Earth because that provides you better coverage with less satellites than you would need if you threw this constellation completely up into geostationary orbit. So these operate here. They still rotate around the planet and orbit around the planet, but that's where the Falcon 9 is going to be targeting them. It's not going to bring it completely there, but that's the orbit that will be targeted today.
Gotcha. All right, let me grab a couple more questions here. This one's from Steel Big and it's fast. I can do this one real quick. It's asking, with all of the hours of video, do we know how many hours of video NASA Spaceflight has? And the answer is no. We have no clue. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. No. Like all the cameras we have everywhere that are sort of constantly looking at things. Yeah, I wouldn't know how much we have. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a monitor dedicated to live feeds coming out of Boca Chica right now, and all of those cameras are constantly recording. And I mean, even from that one thing, what is it? It's 24 hours a day, and there's, well, n number of cameras out there. It's a lot of hours of video. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We got the RTLS. We talked about the lightning towers. We did that joke a few times. Oh, this is a good one. How does SpaceX add the payload after a static fire? Do they lay it back down
Oh, yeah.
horizontal again? How do they put the payload in?
So exactly that. So they roll the whole rocket, which is just the first stage, inner stage, and second stage, out to the pad, fuel it, run through the whole countdown, static fire the engines on the first stage, detank the vehicle, get it safed and inerted, and then they lower the transporter erector back down, bring the whole vehicle back into the horizontal integration facility, and then pop the payload onto the top, and then bring it back out to the pad. Um, and they can do that whole procedure fairly quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time to pop the rocket, which is already encapsulated, onto the attachment systems and detachment systems and encapsulated inside the fairing. It's all sort of there. So it kind of far simpler than it actually is. It's kind of like plug and play, where you just
Right.
take the little remaining Lego piece and go boop onto the top of it and then send it back to the pad. More
Nice. And is
complicated
that
than that, but you get it.
is that the Slick 40 HIF, that building in the foreground there, or
Yes.
do they take it somewhere else? That's
No,
it?
that's it. That's it. Yep. So a lot of times what they will do is the payload will wait off-site, not in the HIF while the rocket is undergoing the static fire. And then once the static fire is complete, the payload comes in, the rocket comes back in, they get connected together, and then they all go to the pad.
Gotcha. Makes good sense. We're coming up on 6 minutes, so we're getting up to the time where we'll stop answering live questions and focus on the launch itself. Let me see if I can get a couple more in here.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
this is good at that. Do a couple super chats real quick. Maxi, actually, thank you so much for the €5. It says, could you have ever imagined that NASA spaceflight would be that big? Chris, do you think we'd be doing live streams and video? And what do we have? 12,000 people watching right now. You standing out on the Cape looking at a rocket.
What was the first part of that? Sorry.
Oh, did you ever think NASA spaceflight would get that big, do things like this, et cetera, et cetera?
It had always been my wildest dreams that we would be as large and have the community that we have. And I am grateful every single day that we got there far
Oh yeah.
quicker than I ever imagined we would. But yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. It really is. I mean, we wouldn't be anywhere without y'all folks showing up. So thanks to everybody who shows up for things like this, whether it's Starship stuff or a Falcon launch or a non-SpaceX stream as well. Remember, we stream all sorts of stuff. Jack's been out to New Mexico. We were just up at Wallops for that Minotaur 1 launch. Across the board, if you like space stuff and you like seeing rockets launch and I guess cranes lift things these days, we appreciate y'all showing up. Max, thank you for the support. Belgorod A is a new member. We appreciate you there. And then Limitless Aerial Systems had a real quick question. Where's the best location to view the launch? If you weren't there at the press site, or the press access, where you are right
Yep.
now, you have to be a member of the press to get there. But for the public, what do you think the best place to watch is, Chris? And we're at 5 minutes.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to answer this, and it kind of depends on what you want to see and what the mission is doing. If you want to have a view of the launch pad and then the mission is launching from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station side, Titusville, because you can actually see the pads. If you want to be closer to a launch, the closest public viewing location for Cape side launches like this is Playa Linda, where you would have a somewhat good view as soon as it lifts off the pad. You could also go to Jetty Park. That's farther away from these pads down south. But missions like this, where they go due east, it provides you a good unobstructed viewing angle of it. And Jetty Park is a really good place when there are return to launch site landings of the booster,
Right.
because you're closest to the landing site there. If it's a Falcon 9 or an Atlas going from 39A or Slick 41 respectively, I would actually recommend Playa Linda Beach,
Yeah.
because you're 3 to 5 miles, 5 to 8 kilometers, depending on which pad they're going from. You have views of them from there. That's sort of where I would say is the best public viewing place. But again, you can't see all the launch pads from there. So you
Yeah.
kind of gotta juggle what you want to see and what you want the experience to be. But those are the three sort of general locations I would recommend.
Yeah. And the good news is, if you're anywhere around the Cape, you're over in Titusville, you're up at Playa Linda, you're down at the port, you're not going to miss the rocket launch. Like, they can't hide the rocket launch
No.
from you. You get some cloudy days and stuff like that, but on a clear day, you can see it clear all the way over from Orlando, right?
Oh my
So
gosh, yes.
you're not going to miss it. You get a nice day, you're not going to miss that launch. We're coming up to T minus 3 minutes here. So, Chris, do you have some prep stuff that you need to do? Michael, are we all good on the back end here?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right.
I am actually all good my end.
Okay, excellent. And we've got a audio check and stuff like that through. Do we hear some lapping noises or something, Michael?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right. Excellent. So 2 minutes and 45 seconds now, y'all, coming up on the launch. Again, this is GPS 3. That's a Falcon 9 live from Cape Canaveral here. We're the NASA Spaceflight team. If you like our commentary, you like hanging out and watching rockets, make sure you follow the channel. Appreciate all the support as well. Really quickly, they're making sure the tripod's unlocked so that we can actually track the rocket. There we
I
go.
appreciate that, but I'll totally admit that my head hit the camera.
Oh no, I got you covered, Chris. I'm just saying, yep. And this is the rocket blessing where we wiggle the tripod around. We make sure it's not tightened down or anything like that. We will see. But folks, we're able to do this because y'all keep showing up. Like I said, the support through the super chats, I haven't had a chance to read them all. I'll get some more after the launch goes. Thank you so much for that. Hey, also, if you bought something from the merch store, we've got a cool store with all sorts of cool space related stuff. A lot of Starbase and Starship stuff. We've got our, what is it? Well, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to, the shirt that shall not be named at T-minus 1 minute and 45 seconds. We're not going to talk about that shirt. We'll talk about that shirt afterwards. See if you can find it in the store maybe. But shop.nasaspaceflight.com is another great way to support what we're doing here and make sure we can keep on bringing y'all these live experiences. But with 1 minute and 30 seconds left here, if we need anything else, I think that is a big expected event, right, Chris?
That is our final big expected event. Yes, the final purging of the transporter erector lines, indicating that fueling of the vehicle is complete. Fueling usually closes out about 2.5 minutes prior to liftoff of the Falcon 9, and that vent is complete, mostly complete, indicating a good purge of the systems, inerting all of those propellant lines ahead of the anticipated liftoff here in less than a minute. So,
Yeah.
Das, I'm going to kick it to you in the studio.
Excellent. And I think your head might have hit the camera again.
Yep.
Okay.
I see it.
All right. Good luck, Chris. Have a good watch out there, and we'll be here watching what you're saying.
Thank you much,
So,
man.
folks, again, we're coming up. This is T-minus 30 seconds. We will remove that countdown clock. The exact timing can sometimes
It should be exact.
It should be exact. Okay, good. Michael says it should be exact. High level of confidence today. We'll see that rocket take off. We'll see that strong back, lean back straight towards the camera here. And hopefully we get a fantastic launch of the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 5 mission coming up in just a few seconds. There's T-minus 10. Let's bring up that audio and we'll listen to this rocket go. That's an ignition and a liftoff. See that tower lean back and Falcon 9 clearing the tower out there at the Cape. Remember, about 3 miles, about 5 kilometers away, that sound is coming across the water towards the microphone. And here it comes. Let's listen in. Pitching downrange, you see it start to lean over. And there is Max Q going through the sound barrier. You see the vapors start to form around the rocket. It doesn't always happen at the exact same time, but we got that shock cone around the rocket. Should see a vapor trail. There's our vapor trail as well. Standard for the launch, the way it's going through the atmosphere, pitching over, you get the cone that forms, and then you get this big vapor trail behind it. It literally sounds like it's ripping the atmosphere. The best thing that the best terminology I can use is that crackling noise. It sounds like those engines are ripping apart the atmosphere as it pushes Falcon 9 up on its orbital trajectory. And look at this now. The next thing I want you to see, do you see how the engine exhaust seems to be getting bigger? It's expanding out to the side. The air's getting thinner. as the rocket goes higher and higher, the same as you climbing up to a mountaintop and having trouble breathing, that air is thin up there where Falcon 9 is flying now, and there's not enough atmospheric pressure to constrain that little pencil-thin rocket plume. Normally you see that little pointy fire. It doesn't happen. That plume expands out there. That is a thing we see every single launch. It's a way we can visually observe that the atmospheric pressure is getting lower. But it looks like we may be off into some haze. So let's cut over to the SpaceX cameras here on board the rocket. You can see the Cape back behind there. That's where it just launched from. Really great shot of the plume expansion. Look at how that fire is actually coming out the sides of the rocket there as opposed to straight out the back. It's just there's no air pressure to keep it in a little pencil flame. So all still looking nominal at T plus 2 minutes and 21 seconds.
Look at that.
Another long-range camera from SpaceX there. Chris, we got you back?
Yes, we did. It went behind clouds, some of the high
Yep.
altitude clouds. Yeah.
All good. So we're going to continue in with SpaceX here. Coming up on MECO, another acronym, main engine cutoff. And there was main engine cutoff and stage separation. So we've got the two cameras there. On the left-hand side, that is on the booster, the bottom, the big part of the rocket looking up. And on the right-hand side, that is on the second stage. That's that Merlin vacuum-optimized engine that's going to continue to increase the velocity, getting the payload all the way up in there, going fast enough so that when it falls, it misses the Earth. I'm not kidding you. That's literally what they're doing when they try to get into orbit. Grid fins deploying there on the booster. And we'll see some thruster firings as well. Watch for those flashes between the grid fins. There you go. Those are actually those cold gas thrusters firing, helping to orient the booster for its reentry. So that's going to continue falling downrange towards the drone ship where it'll attempt a landing. And here we've got a payload fairing.
There we go.
That's the inside of the payload fairing. And now it's I guess not the outside of the payload fairing. That payload fairing separates and will go down, uses some parachutes actually to glide to a soft landing in the water, and will be scooped out by that Haas Briarwood ship that we showed earlier. It's going to be hundreds of kilometers, hundreds of miles downrange from where the launch occurred. So we'll see on the left-hand side. I'm just like, I'm shoutcasting this almost this time. I'm just running the whole thing, Chris. Sorry.
No. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
It's like it's a robotics competition or something. We'll see the booster slowly change its orientation. It wants to go into the atmosphere tail first, and we'll see an entry burn here coming up. Those engines will relight, and it'll actually use some of that engine exhaust on the bottom of the booster to help protect the booster from the plasma, the heat of reentry, the forces that it goes through when it's reentering. So unlike Starship, if you're a big Starship fan, Starship does this belly flop where it sort of goes in sideways and tries to get this barn door effect to slow down as much as possible. Yeah. Falcon 9 is different. Falcon 9 goes in tail first, almost like a pencil dive or something like that, and it uses those engines to slow down and protect itself from re-entry. How you doing, Chris? How's the Cape out there?
I'm doing good. You know, the security is back, of course.
Oh, well.
Once the launch is done, they're right here. We can show it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm doing good. That was a really, really impressive launch. The humidity and the low level clouds really amplified the sound today. I hope that came through over our microphone setups here because it was impressive today.
It absolutely did. We got some great audio today. It sounded fantastic, and I remembered to be quiet so people could hear it.
That's always the trick. That's always the hard part, right? Like, oh, right, I've got to stop talking. But,
yeah.
But speaking of,
go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just saying, I mean, speaking of, I mean, it looks like it's absolutely a gorgeous launch. The rocket went as expected northeast out of the launch site here to get into the proper inclination for the GPS network. They're about 55 degrees inclined to the orbit, and they do that so that they can see the poles. So you don't have to put them in polar orbits, but they can provide global positioning system coverage to the poles. So that's why they go into such high orbits, or highly inclined orbits. But yeah, everything looking good, man. I just love watching those cold gas thrusters fire.
God, just little puffs of force to help Falcon 9 stay on its trajectory. We just saw the grid fins actuate as well. Way up here.
Ooh.
Go ahead. That's the entry bird.
Yeah, that's what I was reacting to. Just that's so cool. Using fire to protect yourself from heat is just such a cool idea. Like,
It is literally fighting fire with fire. You've got all the heat from the atmospheric compression as it re-enters the thicker parts of the atmosphere, and using those engines to literally fight fire with fire. Also slowing down a little bit. You can see that it shed about 2,000, maybe 2,500, almost 3,000 kilometers per hour. The left-hand numbers on the SpaceX stream, lower left, that's the boosters telemetry, stage 1 telemetry. And on the right-hand side, that's the upper stage, stage 2. That's the payload and the second stage continuing on to orbit. So you can see the booster slowing down. Now the engines have turned back off, and it's just slowing down due to atmospheric drag. Even though it's going in tail first, it's getting into thicker and thicker air, and that air is slowing it down. Falcon has to shove that air out of the way. That takes energy, and it comes out of Falcon's velocity. And on the right-hand side, you can see the second stage. It's just continuing to go faster and faster and faster. Whew.
so what should happen here is if the feed from the booster holds, the drone ship should just appear in the ocean here, kind of soon as it comes in to do its landing burn. The second stage will reach SECO, or stage engine cutoff, and enter its initial parking orbit roughly the same time. So they're pretty back to back events here, rapid
Yep.
fire events here.
And
In
have
fact,
a
that
look.
stage almost in orbit. Yeah.
We can see waves now down below. Let's see if I think the drone ship is
on the left,
behind.
yeah.
Yeah, it's behind the grid fin.
Yep. Look at
Still
that.
guiding in. There's the drone ship.
I love how you can really, really, really tell like how the landing burn is the one that corrects it to get it to the drone ship, so that if that engine does ignite, they don't impale the drone ship with an
And there you
uncontrollable
go.
booster.
Look
There
at
you
this.
go.
We had a full feed the entire way down, both cameras staying online so that we could see both perspectives, the booster looking down and then the railing. This is a camera strapped to the railing on the drone ship there. But that first stage has successfully set down on the drone ship out there in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, it has, and the second stage is successfully in its parking orbit, a nice 27,000 kilometers an hour, which is what we want to see for orbital velocity. Very quickly, before I have to start packing up my equipment, just want to run through what the rest of the mission is, because there's still about an hour and 20 minutes left before payload separation.
As
The
long as you
Falcon.
show us an alligator.
Yo, yes. Let me show you the alligator. I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. It's still in the water. Hang on.
Do the mission thing while you point at the Talk about
Yes.
the mission while you point at the alligator.
Yes. So
There you go.
Yes. So the Falcon 9 is in a coast period now. It will need to do a second burn to increase its orbital height, its orbital apogee, into the proper medium Earth transfer orbit that the GPS satellites require. For this, that'll happen about about an hour into the flight, with spacecraft separation coming 1 hour 29 minutes into the mission. So that is what remains for the GPS III SV05 flight in terms of its timeline. And I do believe the alligator has disappeared behind the underneath the water.
It was in a coast phase, but it just landed itself, it looks like. So
Yes.
let's end with that fantastic view, Chris. I know you have to go out there at the Cape.
There you go, Das, your favorite shot on launch day.
Michael,
helicopter,
there we
look at
go.
that.
Oh, wow. It's a bonus
Oh.
helicopter in the background. Folks,
Oh, yeah.
that's what we like to see on launch day. That's my favorite view. It's a launch pad that doesn't have a rocket on it anymore, because that Falcon 9 has carried its payload on its way to orbit. It's safely landed on the drone ship. The payload is in a stable orbit as well. Everything looking great. Still coasts and additional things going on, like Chris said. But so far today, everything looking great for that SpaceX launch of GPS III SV05. Chris, thank you so much for rolling out today. I know you got to pack up. They're going to start shooing you away.
They will start shooing us away back into our cars. But yes, thank you all for I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my element of it here and throw it back to you, Das. But yeah, thank you for joining us for the launch. I'm going to turn it back to Das now. for the
All
rest
right.
of the coverage and commentary.
Sounds good. As always, folks, that's Chris Gebhardt. He's the assistant managing editor for NASA's Spaceflight, out there on the causeway, operating the camera and doing our live Q&A. Because he's part of the media caravan there, he does have to pack up and leave. Trust me, I've been out there myself, and they start looking at you funny if you're not packing up your gear when you can't see the rocket anymore. So thank you so much for Chris. Make sure you toss him a follow over on Twitter if you're on the Bird app. He's ChrisG_NSF. But I'm going to continue to go through some of the super chats and questions here. We've got a little bit of a coast, but we are preparing for a potential another live stream this afternoon. If you're still interested in what's going on, there may be some testing out at Boca Chica. Window for testing opens in about 30 minutes. And so not the test is going to start in 30 minutes, but we are planning on covering that as well. So we need to get organized there too. Let's run through some of these super chats that came through. DYU says, "Go baby go." Thanks NSF. We appreciate you there. Musical Wolves, when will Go Navigator launch? I don't know that I completely understand the question. Go Navigator is one of the crew capsule support ships. Maybe there's a joke in there that I'm not getting, but I appreciate the support either way. Marto, thank you so much for the support too. We've got Keith Ord saying, "I think the best place to watch is the Irish Pub in Titusville, directly across from the VAB." That's either the Irish Pub or there's a good Mexican food restaurant right there as well, Keith. Either one of those are good places to watch from. Appreciate you stopping in. We've got Mark Lowe. Thank you for the support. Jim Cavett says, hashtag Gator Watch or Gator Hop. I don't think we saw a Gator Hop, so it was Gator Watch there. Watching the launch as well. Rockwell Torrey, thanks NSF team for the live coverage and commentary. Appreciate you, Rockwell. Cindy Fitzsimmons asks, "Do you ever do meetups in Port Canaveral?" And I don't know that we've ever done like a community meetup at Port Canaveral. When we really got this going, that's when we all got into lockdown mode. And so I think in the future, probably a little bit more runtime on that, but that would be something really interesting to do. Maybe get together at one of the breweries or something, restaurants or something like that, and do a little community meetup. Thank you for the support.
We've done it before, but not when we had the YouTube channel this big.
Not
Kind of
when we had the
before we
YouTube
even
channel
had
this
the
big.
YouTube channel, we've done it.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you, Cindy. Let's see. I'm just scrolling through a lot of these. We got that one. Xenoraptor asking about adding the payload after a static fire. Varangian says, on reflown booster preference, Elon has stated that insurance company have lower rates for reflown boosters, so they prefer used boosters. Interesting. Is that a tweet, Michael? Have you seen that tweet? Or I don't know if I've seen that specific information.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But yeah, appreciate the support there, Varangian. Thank you so much for stopping in. Taylor Van Camp with a quick one, and I'm sort of speed running here, y'all. I want to make sure we get through as many as we can. Taylor says, "Hello, NSF team. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Not a Falcon 9 specific question, but do y'all know any details on the extended payload fairings?" Michael, have we heard anything? Yeah, they're working on them, right?
Yeah, the Space Force has requested that SpaceX have a larger payload fairing for some of the missions. So we will see that at least on Falcon Heavy with those along with the vertical integration structure. So they're going to be able to integrate the payload fairing vertically, and SpaceX is going to have a extended payload fairing option. I'm not sure if the extended payload fairing will launch on Falcon 9, but it's definitely going to be launching on Falcon Heavy.
Yeah, that was a big limitation of the Falcon Heavy system. It has all this energy, it can carry all this mass, but the payload fairing wasn't as big as some other options out there. And so increasing the volume inside of that payload fairing, sometimes you're not mass constrained, sometimes you're volume constrained. And so asking for that larger payload fairing to be able to fit those larger satellites on Falcon Heavy specifically is definitely something that's coming down the pipe. Thank you, Taylor, for the support. We've got Paul Dawson. I like this one. "Hi all, great coverage as usual. We have so many launches going on and so many satellites in orbit. Could we end up with space gridlock?" Paul, space traffic awareness and collision avoidance is definitely something that they go through every single launch. It's not just about the weather and the clouds. It's not just about the rocket being healthy. It is also about making sure that when you launch, there's not a satellite or a piece of debris in your trajectory. So that is something that they are looking at for every single launch. And we've actually seen launches get delayed or have to go for specific windows so that they're going through I was going to say going through holes in the debris cloud, but it's not really a debris cloud. It's not to that level anywhere near yet. Just making sure that they're launching in a specific slot where they're missing other satellites that may be going over and not getting anywhere near. Space is big, but they still want a very wide margin of safety. They don't pass within, no, it's just a half kilometer. That's a long distance. Sounds like a long way to you. Not that long when you're in orbit because you're going so fast. Thank you so much for the support there, and that is something that the space agencies are looking at. Here we've got Scott Gilmore. Are you guys sitting at the viewing area on the NASA Parkway Causeway? Chris would have been on the NASA Causeway with the press corps there. So they actually do like a caravan thing out, I think. And I'm not sure exactly what part of the causeway they were on today because sometimes they move around a little bit. But they were on the press area of the causeway. So Scott, hope that answers your question there. Did not have an exact GPS fix on Chris today. Let's see here. Chester the Owl, really quickly. Does SpaceX pull a vacuum on their rockets before filling them with fuel or O2? Chester, I think what you're going for there is how do they make sure the tanks are clean inside before they fill them with the fuel? And I think that normally they'll keep them pressurized with an inert gas like nitrogen or something like that. So you're not getting external humidity building up in there or something like that, right? I think that's the question that you're asking me. I don't believe they pull a vacuum inside the tanks. You wouldn't want the tanks to crumple. Now, again, this is me sort of answering from a what I think makes sense perspective. I hope somebody at SpaceX isn't out there like, well, no, actually, we pull a vacuum on the tanks down to negative X number of bar or whatever. I'm pretty sure they don't. I think that they probably keep them positive pressure so you don't get atmospheric humidity and stuff like that inside the tanks. Would be my guess. Michael, that sounds like a good guess, right?
Yeah, I think you did a good job.
All right, cool. I made that one up on the fly, but it makes sense. Liz McQuaid, $20 and said, how many staff members do you actually have? The launches and more this year are keeping you very busy. Oh, geez. We've answered this one a couple times. It's in the teens, 20s number of people that are contributing on a daily basis to NASASpaceflight. We have sort of a core team that's, I guess me and Michael wouldn't even say full-time, like full-time plus, because it takes a lot of time to keep this stuff running. But we've got, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 people or something like that, Michael? There's not an exact
like
count.
a lot. There's like some full-time people. There's some, significant amounts of the week, but not quite full-time people. Then you have like a ton of people who just help out when they have time. So it's if you go in total, how many people help out is probably well past 20.
Yeah. I think an interesting thing to say is we do these types of broadcasts with a whole heck of a lot less people than the news does. Your local news station, Michael in the background, me here doing hosted commentary, Chris out in the field operating a camera. We get these broadcasts going with not a lot of people. Like primarily today, on today's broadcast, it was 3 people. Camera operator, commentator out in the field was Chris. Back in the studio, I'm the host, MC, whatever you want to call it, DOS. And then running the camera operations, the servers, the broadcast, that sort of stuff was Michael. So today it was sort of 3 people. Then we have other people like the thumbnail that comes up for YouTube. That's something Brady made. And then we've got people scheduling things and making sure we have people to do commentary. Thomas helps out with that. So all sorts of different things go into making the broadcast and the daily videos and coverage happen. In any event, probably went overboard on that answer. I appreciate you, Liz. Thank you so much for stopping in. John Clayton. Another $20 saying, your audio of the rocket ripping apart the fabric of the sky was stupendous. Thanks. John, that is something that's really important to us. Like we have practice and tests, and that's why I was asking it like T-3, like, are we set? Did we do audio checks? Let's make sure we get that audio. Because it's one thing to see the rocket launch. It's another thing to hear the rocket launch. And I got to tell you, if you are ever in the position where you can go and experience something like that in person, you should pull out some stops and jump over some hurdles to try and see a launch in person. Not reasonable for everybody. People watching from all over the world, et cetera, but you think it's cool hearing it. feeling it. When you're there and you're a couple miles away, even 5 miles, 7 miles away, those sound waves impacting your chest, they just sort of they rattle you to the bones. It's something that you feel. It's like a visceral experience. It's not just something you hear. It's not just something you see if you can be there in person. So if you got subwoofers, crank them up. Do the best you can to get your chair shaking when that rocket launches. Let's see. John Miles coming through there, getting to the end of the queue, says, thanks for the coverage, informative and fun as always. We appreciate you, John. We have a lot of fun doing this, so thank you for saying so. And then Kova, thank you for the support as well. But that gets me through all of our contributors there with the super chats. Let's see where we are. We answered a ton. I see a lot of questions, sort of repeated things that we answered earlier. A couple things that we hadn't, we don't really have the answer to, like, what is the exact cost per mission per launch? I think sometimes for government contracts we have information, but you know, what exactly did they spend on this one mission? I don't know that one off the top of my head. Let's see. Michael, I know that we are supposed to be preparing for that other window. How are we looking here for the SpaceX stream? It's still a long way before the second burn and spacecraft separation. I think we're probably coming up on the end of our coverage, right?
Yeah, spacecraft separation is over 90 minutes into the launch, so we have to prepare, or it's actually 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 20 seconds into launch, so just under 90 minutes into launch, and we have to prepare for another live stream. There is a road closure in Boca Chica scheduled today between noon and 8 p.m. local time. So we're not sure if it's going to start right at the top of the window, but we'll be ready in case. We expect there to be a cryogenic proof test of the BN 2.1 booster test tank.
Righty. Well, folks, that will bring us to the end of our show here today. Again, be on the lookout for this. That's only 30 minutes from now. That road closure down at Boca Chica, actually 27 minutes if we'd like to be precise. That is something that we're looking at covering. We don't know that the test will start exactly at the beginning of the window, but this is supposed to be some testing on that BN 2.1 test tank that they've got down there at Boca Chica. And will it be super exciting? Will there be anything to see? It may be something where we don't really see anything, just an ambient test where they're looking at pressures but not really temperatures. It may be a cryo test where we start to see some ice and some vapors and stuff like that form. It could be a test of failure. We've seen tanks like that pop during the test before, and that's a little spectacular sometimes, just a fountain of cryogenic liquid going everywhere. You never know what you're going to get, but if it looks like there's going to be something to see, we'll be right back here on the exact same channel on YouTube, NASA Spaceflight, streaming that as well. So be on the lookout. Make sure you toss a follow here so that you can get back. Also, over on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, we're at NASA Spaceflight. That's the primary account, and you'll usually get a live stream notification there as well. That always gets tweeted out with a link to the stream and stuff like that. But here today, let's just go ahead and say thanks one more time. Chris Gebhardt and Julia Bergeron were out there on the causeway at the Cape, running the cameras, taking photos and stuff like that. There's Chris's information up in the corner. He's already had to pack up and take off. And then Julia as well. Julia Bergeron, our fleet watcher. There is Julia's information. Also on Twitter, she's Julia_Bergeron on Twitter. Mods, get some of those links into chat. There you go. Thank you, Murto. There's Chris's Twitter. We'll get Julia's Twitter, etc., etc. Just click those links in chat if you want to toss a follow to some cool people who probably have things you may be interested in. Also, back in the studio, Michael, thank you. That went pretty smoothly today, huh?
Other than, yeah, I guess we're just the wrong graphic at the very start. That was it.
I think we'll let that one slide. That was our bug. We have one bug per broadcast, and that was a pretty good, pretty non-malicious bug to have, huh?
Yeah.
All right, there's Michael's information over there, y'all. Check out Next Spaceflight as well. If you want your phone to go off when there's going to be a rocket launch that you might be able to watch, check out Next Spaceflight. The app that Michael made and manages is a cool thing to install. And then back here in the studio, my name is John Galloway. If you're watching over on Twitch, you may know me as Das. But here from, I guess not live stream control, that was Michael today. But I will be back this afternoon, I've got a special event going on with Intrepid Museum up in New York City. We're going to be talking live with some folks from NASA about samples, rock samples from space, how we return them, how we study them, that sort of thing. That's going to happen over on my Twitch channel at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's about 4.5 hours from now. Of course, free for everybody to join. If you want to come by, we have about a 90-minute conversation with the folks from NASA, and that is in partnership with the Intrepid Museum up there. We do these monthly shows where we cover a cool space topic and have a hangout for the community to ask some questions directly to scientists and stuff like that. So twitch.tv/DasValdez is where you can find that this afternoon. But for now, we're going to go ahead and shut down our live commentary, view from Fleet Cam here, and we will see you nerds later. Thank you so much for the support, and thanks for joining us.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Toggling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight down, SE off. Bring in, SE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.